Whenever you're ready.
Hunter, you know, the coffee store should be called.
Okay, so welcome. We're going to get started here in a moment. Thank you for being here to listen to these presentations today. This room will host all of the Business Intelligence Program presentations throughout the day. There's 3 sessions. There'll be 9 presentations going as well. And this is Zach. He's going to talk a little bit about police science, how to use data analytics to support activities within a police department. So, thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. As Professor Ratajek said, I'm Zachary, and I'm here to talk to you about the importance of data analytics in a local police department. Let's see if this will turn on. So a little bit about myself. I am a double major here in business intelligence and data analytics, as well as criminal justice. I'll be graduating this year and hopefully pursuing a career where I can incorporate both data analytics and in a police department. Wait for the projectors to turn on.
While we kick that off.
Yeah, while we wait, we'll put the projections up on the TVs for those of you around the corners. So I'll start off by speaking a little bit about myself. So I've been within law enforcement in some way or another since 2009. I started in 8th grade with a program called the Explorers Program, which is designed for kids who are that age to really start to kind of see if they want to go into a career of law enforcement. I've been with the same department since then for those 8 years, moving my way up out of that program and into a position where I was considered a peace officer, certified law enforcement officer, and then moved my way up even further with the same department, working within all different subcategories of the department, such as investigations, evidence, even special response teams, SWAT teams, and underwater recovery teams, which has been a great opportunity. Really fun and has really grown my passion and my knowledge of law enforcement. So being that I want to get into law enforcement, it comes to you got to really realize what you're getting into. So we're going to take a look at the year in review as a law enforcement officer. So pretty staggering statistics that are going to come up. In 2016, 144 police officers were killed, which is the highest number which we've had in recent American history. 21 have been in this new style of ambush style attacks where cops are either sitting in their car, don't see it coming, or just getting gunned down because of the badge or the uniform that they wear. 63 have been from gunfire. 63 deaths have been from gunfire, which has now surpassed the recent, all of history, surpassed the automotive vehicle crashes as being the leading cause of death in law enforcement officers. And as I said, this is the highest amount of officer deaths in recent years. And it's not just human officers, it's even their canine officers. 34 canine officers were killed in 2016. So getting to really understand what I'm going into has been very vital to pursuing this career option and really chasing a passion that's going to allow me to help law enforcement officers through the use of analytics. So let's look at this year, 2017, almost 5 months in, we've already had 41 police officers killed in 2017, which at this rate, that number will surpass the 2016 statistics. 14 have been from gunfire, which again has exceeded the amount of officers killed in automotive crashes. 5 canine officers have been killed in 2017 as well. And at this point, the Ferguson effect is more relevant, which perhaps you haven't heard of. Can anybody have an idea of what the Ferguson effect is? Any law enforcement majors? Anybody? Tamo? No? The Ferguson effect happened when Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson, Missouri, and it's the thought that police officers are more hesitant to act due to the fact that they're going to end up as the next YouTube sensation, or they're going to lose their career over excessive force. And it's also the idea that law enforcement officers have been under very heavy scrutiny since 2014. So what sparked the creation of this data analytics project, which I'm going to get into, as I said, was August 9, 2014, the Ferguson, Missouri shootings of Michael Brown. July 6, 2016, not too far from here, the Falcon Heights, Minnesota shootings, which caused great controversy. And then July 7th, 14 police officers were injured or killed in Dallas, Texas. And that was so at this time, which was the largest attack against law enforcement in American history, other than 9/11. July 8th was an interesting day. As I walked into the department that I was currently working with, it was a very different feeling. It was a feeling that everybody was upset, and we weren't sure exactly what the response from the public was going to be. However, we were met with overwhelming amounts of appreciation and celebration of the police by the community. We had people coming in, bringing us cards, bringing us treats and flowers, which was really fantastic. But since then, the mindset of police officers have been very different, as in sometimes they're hesitant to act, as I said, such as that Ferguson effect. And then we're going to come back to this slide a little bit later. So what really drove this project, data analytics project, was that all those casualties in 2004 or in 2017 in Dallas. So when that happened, we started to think in my department, how are we going to prepare if something like this were to come to our city? So what we did is I worked with a team within the professional development and training unit to develop this analytical project which would test officers and which would better their abilities to survive in a situation if something such as Dallas came up. So what we did was we took nearly 200 officers in the department, put them on a shooting course, and recreated the way that they train with their pistols, their rifles, and their shotguns. This particular analytics project deals just with their pistols. So rather, how it works when you qualify with your duty pistol in a police department, in Illinois at least, is you stand at a target from 3 feet or 3 yards, 10 yards, 15 yards, and then 25 yards, and you stand and shoot at a standing still target without moving, which isn't practical. What we know today is that the average officer-involved shooting lasts 3 seconds. And in those 3 seconds, there's typically between 6 and 26 shots fired from the officer. Now, rather than having them just stand and shoot at a non-moving target, we decided to look at situations such as Dallas. What kind of positions were the shooters in? What kind of positions were the officers in? And we recreated those using multiple different styles and different phases of the testing process to test their accuracy and their number of shots that they get off. So obviously, to ensure officer integrity, the names of the police departments have been blocked out. So what we get here is every single officer on the side here in the data dashboard. We have nearly, well, in this particular set, we have about 120 officer names and followed up by their shifts, so they're either A days, A nights, so 2 different shifts, days or nights. FTO is field training, so they're the training officers. IMV is investigation, SRT is their special response team. The first graph that we have here is the level of retention on an officer's holster. Levels of retention are 1, 2, and 3, and that determines the level of actions you need to take to bring your firearm up. What we found, interesting enough, is that levels of retention really doesn't make a difference in how fast you can draw your weapon as long as you practice again and again. The second graph here is the time it took for an officer to draw their weapon from an interview stance being with their hands right here, such as you're talking to somebody. If you were to walk up to a car and somebody comes out the window and starts shooting at you, is it better to be like this, or is it better to walk up to a car with your hand on your weapon, even though it looks intimidating? What we found is the draw time from the interview stance, as you can see here, took about an average 1.35 seconds for an officer to react, draw their weapon, and fire 1 shot. Significantly different from that, the draw time for an officer with their hand already on their gun, so you're walking up to a vehicle like this, was significantly shorter, cut in half. It was less than a second, 0.82 seconds. So using this graph a little bit, we can click on individual officers, multiple officers, or we can click on the specific shift that they're on to see how they compare to each other. So in this example, this is our special response team. Most carry a level 1 retention holster. They're drawing in about, well, all of them except for 4 are drawing in under a second with their interview stance, and all of them are far under a second, the best being 0.45 seconds, less than half a second, with their hand on their gun. So in a situation when you're walking up to a car, for example, what we found is it's much better, even though it's intimidating, to always have your hand on your weapon ready to go. The next phase of testing really went a little bit deeper into the scenarios that could happen. So time taken to back behind cover. This here is it. I was standing, if I was walking up to a car from me to you, and you pop around the window and you start shooting at me, am I gonna, either you're gonna stand there and you're gonna fight or you're gonna run back? What we decided to do was to take officers, let them back or back behind cover 10 yards while shooting. What we found, it takes the officers on average to back 4.25 seconds to get back behind their vehicle, to get to cover. The number of shots taken in that amount of time averaged 10. So as I'm backing up, I'm shooting on average 10 shots, which is pretty significant. Some officers going as high as 37, which is really, or I'm sorry, 17, which is pretty, quite a bit. And then the time taken once you get behind cover to do a speed reload, which is you flip your mag out, you change mags, 5.78 seconds. And then the percentage of shots on target, which is the big one, is this, are you going to survive this gunfight or not? This is what the statistic says. On average, people hit the person or the target, in this case, 85% of the time. So by doing practices and procedures such as this, the officers get a better chance to really practice what is most likely going to happen in a low light situation or when they walk up to a car. So this particular phase of the testing was very significant. It really helped the officers really better their survival chances should something happen. Phase 3 went from, again, the car situation, walking, however, running behind cover, running in a diagonal. Obviously, if you're getting shot, you're not running straight back. You're going to run in a diagonal, hopefully. That's what we're trying to train our officers in, because in Dallas, there's videos out there where officers were trying to retreat, ran straight back, and get in the back. So we're training them now to run diagonally, hopefully behind a car or retreat. So what we found was a time that it took officers to run, I believe it was 10 yards or 15 yards, and get behind cover was 5.67 seconds. And then when they actually get behind cover, this graph here represents the time it takes them for their gun to malfunction. So we put a dummy round in, essentially, so their gun would malfunction, and they have to work through that and really know their weapon and be able to defend themselves in a very stressful situation. And then again, the big one, percentage of shots on target. 69%, this one was a little bit lower. Some officers hit none, which then what would happen is they would go back, they would try again and again and again, and they would continue to work with the field training officers to improve their accuracy. So if we look at this one, we'll look at the special response team again. Most of them under the average in this case, and hitting all of them except for 200%. So phase 4, this was something that we wish the Dallas officers would have done, and what we've trained our officers to do in a situation is drop to the prone position. Obviously, you're less likely to get hit. So the time it takes for an officer to drop to a prone position and fire their first round on average, this first graph here, 4.46 seconds. Which is a rather long time. The time taken to transition between cover, in this case it was rolling in front of a barrel or some other form of cover, 8.9 seconds, which is significant. And then the percentage of shots on target in this category was the lowest, 72%. So this particular phase was very important because officers weren't doing as well as we had suspected or expected. And we went back with them and took our firearms instructors and took our officers and really ran them through a very rigorous course again and again to better their accuracy in a prone position. And then after we gathered up all this data and we analyzed it, we came up with our final scores. What we found is that the average number of shots fired throughout this course was 48. The number of shots on target throughout the course, so the actual number that they've hit, is 40. The total time taken to complete the course was about 65.3 seconds. Some officers took a little bit longer, some less. And then the final scores of the officers, we'll look at the special response team again. The average percentage of shots hit and the total time and all that factored in was 83%, which is very, very, very good. What we did for the officers that didn't score above a 75 is they essentially failed this this qualification with their duty pistol. They had to go back and redo it. And that wasn't because we were being mean to them, it's because we want them to be safe out there. So the significance of this project and other projects that relate to data analytics in a police department are that when we get in, or God forbid, one of our officers get into an involved shooting, this is not only going to become, well, it will become very relevant in a court hearing. The judge, for the first time, can look at how much they actually trained. They can see it it's very simply laid out. They can see how much the officer trained, what they scored, and not this specific weapons dashboard, but other dashboards have been used already in court systems and have given the officers immunity. Likewise, this allows each officer to see how they compare to their colleagues, and it allows them to see like how they're performing overall. And we find that to be very important in a very beneficial way for officers to improve and to get better. So this particular project initially went out to only the firearms instructors, and they picked off from their specific shift who needs to improve, who doesn't need to improve. And then it then went out to every single officer in our department, and they found it revolutionary to the style that they were originally receiving firearms data. They never really before had a way to measure themselves between other officers, but now they do, and they really enjoyed it. And what I find to be critical is that every department, local law enforcement department, starts doing something like this. It's not expensive to do. It's easy to do for the most part, and it saves lives. It allows officers to get put in very stressful situations that they've never been in before. So when the time comes to perform, they can do so. Overall, the project took around 2 months, but it's still used to this day. It's updated regularly, and it's become very beneficial to the department. So with that, I'm going to show you one final video from the Dallas Chief of Police, which I really enjoy, and it really, I think, nails home some of the issues that we're having within law enforcement today. It's kind of quiet, so this is from after the Dallas shooting. The police chief, you might have seen this on the news, tells people what they can do to kind of help law enforcement.
I'm the kind of person that I probably wouldn't protest or complain. I'd get involved and do something about it by becoming part of the solution. And that's still in me. That keeps me going. That I get so much satisfaction that I can do a small thing to help this community. I just love that, and I love serving. It's part of my character, it's part of who I am. I get all the crap we got to take as police officers. The satisfaction you get from serving, much more gratifying. Much more gratifying. And it's like that for a lot of police officers. Become a part of the solution. Serve your community. Don't be a part of the problem. We're hiring. We're hiring. Get off that protest line and put an application in. We'll put you in your neighborhood, and we will help you resolve some of the problems you're protesting about.
So I think he says it very well, and he says a lot of things that police officers have been scared to say. Don't be a part of the problem, become part of the solution. And I really hope that more departments can incorporate data analytics projects such as this to become part of the solution, help their officers survive so we can lower that number of officer-involved deaths in the coming years. Finally, I would like to thank St. Mary's University, the business department, specifically Professor Ratajczak, and the Criminal Justice Department, Dr. Klosky, for allowing me to do this presentation, for all the knowledge that they've helped me gain. And I look forward to going on about data analytics in a police department. Thank you very much for coming. Any questions that anybody has about the project? I can pull it back up for you guys. Any questions at all, Professor Ricacci?
How did you collect the data, physically? Or...
Yeah, that would have been great to explain that. So the data was, it was self-created by myself and a team of officers within the Professional Development and Training Unit. So as I said, we went on a course. We decided what actions the officers are going to take, and we wrote down on pen and paper every little detail that the officers did, including how many shots they fired, how much time it took. But we looked very in depth at how they position themselves, how they stand, how they hold their weapon, how they even do stuff such as run, or how they back up. And everything that they did was analyzed very critically, and then written down on pen and paper, and then it came into this huge Excel document that was very ugly, and then it eventually turned into something that was a little more appealing to the eye. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Did you find any correlation with shifts being more well trained than others?
Absolutely. As I said, the special response team, as anybody would expect, had the best scores. They're obviously training much more. The lowest scoring people were the investigations unit. And that also made sense because they're not the people that are out there on the streets. They're coming after something's already happened. So they did actually receive extra time to try to better their scores, but it wasn't a surprise that they were lower. The next highest was the field training officers, as you would expect. They're a little bit more highly trained than some of the patrol guys. Anything else? Any other questions? Mike?
I noticed you had a couple outliers in a couple of your charts. So did you have to omit any of that?
You know, the only data that was omitted, we wanted to get everybody in. The only data that was omitted were officers that couldn't complete the course, either due to sickness or other injuries at the time. But for the most part, every officer that was there and performed, except for one, is in the project, despite there are some outliers, as you said, such as the investigation scoring significantly lower than some other people.
But what's cool about the dashboard is you can click on those subcategories.
Yeah,
And then
yeah, I should have showed you a little bit more. So, for example, A nights, they go out, 2 nights a week. You can compare, so A nights, B nights, FTO, all of them have their own firearm instructor. So the firearm instructor would receive this graph right here and see specifically how their people are doing. They'd see their final scores and say, okay, this guy didn't do so great, this guy did really great, so let's get them some more practice. So using the dashboard, having it broken up into shift and the individual officers was very beneficial to the commanding officer staff.
And then you can compare too, right?
We,
Officer names.
yeah, we can
or a couple
compare.
people.
We can compare officer names. So we could have a special response guy compared to somebody on A nights. Obviously, special response, I'm sure did a little bit better, but it's very beneficial. It kind of puts a competitive factor into becoming better than the person next to you. Thank you very much for attending.
Wow.